The grades are in, and despite the lack of star power, Vandy did great in the transfer portal. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, set it in the cold open, and I mean it. We're going to grade the transfer portal stuff. We're going to do the early grades. This is not a semester report card. This is more like a progress report. This is more like this is how we're doing so far, because you have to get through the hurdle of spring practice, fall camp, and then the final grades are after the season. We'll know if they go bowling or not. So given that, I thought Vandy did great in the portal so far. And there's another window that's going to open, so they've got a chance to add even more pieces there. But they lost some Power 5 stars. The receiving core, DeRicky Wright, all three quarterbacks, it just, the way it looked when you had all those exits was bad. Ethan Barr going, but can't come to find out he couldn't make up his mind. He went from Washington now to Central Florida. But despite losing all of that, I thought the position that Vandy is in, okay, now you have to grade this in relative terms. This is not a catch-all thing, because you can't grade on the same scale as an Alabama or a Georgia or an LSU or a Texas or a USC. You can't grade on that same scale because of the situation. Vandy, let's go through the tail of the tape. Vandy's coming off a 2-10 season, okay? And coming off a 2-10 season, that's never easy. And you have an offense that was in complete disarray, probably one of the worst offensive coordinators in Vanderbilt football in a long time. And that's hard for me to say because I'm a coach, and I usually have compassion for the coaches, and I usually understand kind of what they're going through and the strife they're going through and how difficult that job is. But at the same time, got to call a spade in this scenario. It just didn't work out. He's not a bad coach. I just don't think he was ready for the situation that he was put in. You're in a talent disadvantage in the best conference in all of college football, and it's a tough gig for anybody. But if you're somebody who doesn't know the landscape and who doesn't know what you have, that's a tough gig. So I understand. But nonetheless, it was a mess. And judging from all the offensive departures, it was a mess. And honestly, Clark Lee is to be at fault here. He hired Joey Lynch, and that's, and that's on him, and he knows that, and he made the change, but it was, I think some of those players were fed up. So, and some of them wanted different opportunities. Some of them got NIL opportunities, and same thing on the defensive side of the ball. I just think he made two really bad coordinator hires, and it just didn't go well for him. So, but I think for him to be able to get some of the pieces that he's gotten, I think he had to kind of think outside the box a little bit and kind of not try to go after the huge star power, because Vanderbilt at this current time, I hate to say this, is not an overly attractive place for coaches or players. And I think for him, all the changes that he made, they were relatively quiet. Their only transfer additions early on were defensive guys, because Clark Lee made the decision early that he was going to take over defensive play calling. And I think you saw a surge of guys coming in that were like, oh, okay, Like this is not a bad situation. So, but he, in order to grade this thing effectively, in order to see that Vanderbilt actually did a really good job, you have to understand the factors that go around this, because like everything I just mentioned is going against Vanderbilt. And yes, you get dinged for losing all that talent. And yes, it's on Clark Lee for not retaining that talent. But in a transient world of college football, that's going to happen, right? You're going to have a lot of portal movement. Everybody has portal movement. Georgia, two-time national champion, has a lot of portal movement. Bama just lost a slew of players in the portal. Now they got 5 stars behind them. They're a little bit different, but everybody takes big losses in the portal. So what Vandy, and I applaud this and Clark, and maybe Clark Lee is learning. This is another step of why I think he's learning, because he's now thinking outside the box. Like, okay, we can't do something cookie cutter conventional like everybody else in the conference is doing offensively. So I'm going to go hire Tim Beck for New Mexico State. All right. Well, this team has a recipe of success on the road at Auburn. They must know something. Well, I'm going to go get their entire staff, basically, which is kind of hilarious all in the same token. But, like, Jerry Kill's a phenomenal head coach, and he'd still be a head coach, and he'd be a major Power 5 head coach right now if it weren't for his seizures and his health problems. And that's unfortunate because he's, like I said, he's got such immense talent as a coach. He was with TCU when they made their national title run. And it's just everywhere he goes, he's a winner. And he was in the same role at TCU that he is in now at Vanderbilt. Not saying Vanderbilt's going to be a national championship appearance, but they are certainly going to be much, much improved, because I think the whole operation just suffered and was just bogged down, and just it was bad last year. And I think Clark Lee just kind of he couldn't stop the momentum. And so with that, there's going to be collateral damage. So in thinking outside the box, things you have to do as a struggling Power 5 program, you have to look at FCS and you have to say, okay, who are some of the stars that are entering the portal that we can pick off? Well, we have a need at cornerback, so we're going to get all Big Sky Conference first teamer Marlon Jones. Okay, that was a big get for Vanderbilt, because like he probably could have gone elsewhere. He probably could have gone to one of those West Coast schools and been just perfectly fine. Like he would have been good out there, but he chose to come to Vanderbilt because he knows that Clark Lee has a really good plan for him at the cornerback position, and he's going to be a factor. He saw an opportunity. Hey, I'm an FCS guy. I'm going to get into the SEC, put some good film out there for the scouts, and give myself a chance for the NFL. He saw that opportunity and went for it. And Vanderbilt said, okay, look, this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to get guys that fit our system, that fit us. Like, we've got to think differently. We can't go after star power. It's in a way, it's kind of like the Moneyball stuff that Billy Beane was doing out in Oakland. Like, you're getting guys that fit what you do versus just going out and say, okay, you're the best at this position, we're going to go get you. Like, Vanderbilt's not in that position. All right? They're just not. So they got to get scheme fit guys, culture fit guys. So that's good. They went right down the road to Murfreesboro, Zaylen Wood. They got him. Like, he was a player just trying to like break out and make a name for himself. Couldn't quite do it. Injuries, things like that. Was starting to become a star. He became the captain. He became first team. He was first or second team all conference, if I remember correctly. He wreaks havoc there. He's a guy that like is still under the radar, and he performed it really well at MTSU, but nobody knew about it because it was at MTSU and they were just kind of a middling, mediocre program. But get him in the boat. You go get the 2 quarterbacks from Tim Beck's system. Like, what 2 perfect guys to run than the guy who just won 10 games in your offensive coordinator system at a place like New Mexico State? Yeah, I'll sign up for that. All right. Then you find potential guys. Like, you go get Colby Taylor from Wyoming, big 6'4" corner. He's got some raw skills. Like, he needs to be refined, but like, holy cow, man, like, you can't coach 6'4". That's a lot of length out there at corner. And when you're playing certain zone packages and certain coverages, like, he'll come in handy a little bit, and he'll come in handy in the slot some. He can cover some of the bigger guys. He can cover some ground in the middle. Like, they'll find a role for him at 6'4". They probably should, but that, he's probably a little bit more raw than most of the other people. So he's got to work out some of that stuff. Then you look at the receivers, right? What impresses me about that is you have these receivers like Jeremiah Dillon. Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss described him as smooth. He's fast, skilled. He's a high ceiling guy. He's a guy that, you go to some of these programs and you get like the fourth or fifth guy on the depth chart in a loaded wide receiver room for a well-respected program. Like, he wants to be a star, and he wants to prove that he can play in this league. So why not come to Vanderbilt? Like, you're going to be you have a chance to be the dude. All right. Vandy had 3 dudes: Jaden McGowan, Will Shepard, and London Humphreys. All 3 are gone. Who's left? Well, it's going to be somebody new. Why not Jeremiah Dillon? Loic Foungy, he's insanely athletic, pretty skilled. He was productive, but had some injuries. Like, you get some guys that were a little bit banged up. That's good, right? You've got some guys that, freshman All-American, that just, overshadowed because of injury, like potential stars. Like, you got to take some risk, man. You got to take some risk. And so, at the end of the day, I think they did really well. But, you had, your quarterback, Nate Johnson, Brandon Fontenette, and Mirko, the punter. They all had better offers too, some of them. And they chose Vanderbilt. So what's that say about your program and the direction of your program? I'd say it's going up. So take that for what it's worth. I think the strategy was really, really good. And I think this is part of the reason why I think they're going to be a lot more successful than they were a year ago and even 2 years ago, because I think finding these guys and I think you're going to find the right fit, because like, these guys want to be here. They've got something to prove. And some of them, they see the potential, right? These guys have really high BS meters. They can sniff that stuff out pretty easily. And if you're full of it, they know it. And it seems like that they know that they have a chance to come in and do something and make something. And then this freshman class, they signed a really good recruiting class, probably the best since Clark Lee's been here. And so they're improving it in that way. They've already got a bunch of offers out for some notable 2025 guys that I've been kind of mentioning. There's one here in particular that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Big in-state target. So things are looking up, and I know it doesn't seem that way because they're 2-10, same old Vandy. The basketball stink is kind of overshadowing everything. It's like the skunk on the side of the road that is not going to be impactful in about 2 miles, but it's right now stinking up the joint. So if you kind of just wade through it, there is some good things on the other side. And I really applaud Clark Lee for all of the steps that he's taken this offseason. I truly believe that it can work out. Wholeheartedly believe that it can work out. If he didn't sign Nate Johnson, if he didn't sign Brandon Fontenette, if he didn't hire who he hired, if he didn't make some of the moves that he's made, I would say that he's insecure and he's worried about his job. Nah, he just wants to improve. So anyway, when we come back, we'll talk about an in-state running back who visited, left very impressed. Do we have a chance at him? That remains to be seen. We'll check it out. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all of those who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Chiefs, 49ers. Leave in the comments who you got. All right, are you a Swiftie or are you a Niner? So if you're like me, though, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks and placing some super bets. I love the appetizers. Like, there's nothing like getting a plate full of buffalo chicken dip, pizza crescent rolls, and all the other. There's not really many Super Bowl food that swings and misses for me. The commercials are great. Like, I'm glued the entire time. The halftime show is going to be really good this year with Usher. I really like that. I really like betting too. I like betting. I like betting the spread. I like taking the over under. I like doing all the common ones, but I also really like doing the anytime touchdowns. I really like those. Those are a lot of fun. So FanDuel has so many ways for you to end your season with a W or 2 or 3. But not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for anytime touchdowns, so which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. There's so many prop bets out there that are fun. So new customers, join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back. Segment number 2. I just talked about the transfer portal. I just talked about how I don't know if I ever officially gave my letter grade, but I think it's B+, because I think you still need to add some big guys up front. I still think you're lacking a little bit there. But I think overall for what they got is really, really good. And I think it'll be really good fits. So we turn our horizons to 2025. Vandy had their first junior day, and there was a guy. There was a lot of guys, but there was a guy that visited. He is a top in-state target. His name is Shaki Mills-Knight. He had 1,200 all-purpose yards during his junior season at state runner-up Chattanooga Baylor. All right, he's got a lot of Power 5 interest now. Plays a very important position. Big guy, 6'2", 210, big bruiser. He just got an offer. He's teammates of Whit Muschamp, so there's going to be a little bit of, hey, Vanderbilt. There's going to be a lot of poking, right? But he was here for junior day, and honestly, Coach GML, Ghali Muhammad Langford, Coach Langford, he comes in, man, with a bang. And Shaki Mills-Knight, this is according to VandySports.com, the coaches showed straight love. I got to learn about how they get down at Vandy and what they're all about, which was a good thing. His impressions of Coach GML, he's real. I only met him yesterday. He kept everything real. He's a good dude, and I could tell he's a great coach. But what Shaki Mills-Knight would bring is a guy that has a nice combo of size and running ability. The yaks, the yards after contact, man, are really important. He's kind of that just hammer that you need in this league. So I'm excited about that. It's just the whole education thing. He was impressed by that, and I think there's a real chance. But he has offers from Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Cincinnati as well. So we'll see kind of how that goes. But having his teammates here, being right down the road from Vanderbilt, I think will be a huge. I think will be a bonus. And if Vanderbilt can pull him, that would be tremendous. But man, just the way he plays, I'll do an extended breakdown. This guy's impressive, man. Like I said, his size just jumps out at you, man. He just bulldozes, man. He just bulldozes, and it's really, really good. And he's got some good explosion too. Once he, for being 6'2", 210, he's got a lot of shiftiness, got a lot of explosion, And when he finds a crease, man, and he explodes through it, that's all she wrote, man. He's actually a home run hitter. He scored some big long touchdowns, a couple of notables against Macaulay, and he can flat out go, man. And he's the type of running back that I think would make Vanderbilt a viable team and a team that can improve even more. So excited to have him. Hopefully, hope he enjoyed his junior day. Just know, Shaki, that the education at Vanderbilt's top notch. You'll get a chance to play right away, and got a really good coach there. So that's going to be good for him. And I hope he'll make the best decision for himself. So it'll all work out the way it's supposed to. But anyway, he left impressed. So that's a good sign. All right. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. We're going to talk about RJ Austin. We're going to jump back to a little bit of Vanderbilt baseball, little Vandy boys. All right. So RJ Austin, a Swiss Army knife. We'll talk about it. All right. We are also brought to you by Jace Medical. So we know you come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life. But can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if a significant other or sibling or child got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medical or medication they needed. Thankfully, they'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff can happen to any of us. So visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off of your order. All right, let's finish this thing out, man. I want to thank you guys for listening to the Locked On Vandy podcast. Thank you to my everydayers, Kurt Page, Michael Specs, Scotty Derrick, amongst others. Thank you guys for making all of this possible. Follow the show on social media at Locked On Vandy on X and Instagram. Every time I talk Vandy boys baseball, I learn something new every single day. I'm fairly new to the baseball breakdown, so bear with me a little bit. Some of the things I talk about may come off as, this is set in stone, this is the way, but it's not. These are all possibilities. And as a coach, I know that nothing is set in stone. I just know that when I talked about the infield newcomers on yesterday's episode, they will make an impact in some way or another. At some point, Holcomb is going to start at third base. At some point, Austin Fort is going to play and start at third base or at first base. It's going to happen, right? Jaden Davis may or may not play some shortstop. He'll probably get some DH, but he'll probably play a little shortstop, but he may factor in at DH as well. Like there's some things, there's some decisions that Tim Corbin's going to have to make as far as like where he puts people. One of those decisions is RJ Austin. Now, RJ Austin was as a freshman last year. He had a pretty nice little season. He was a 257 hitter and hitting 7 home runs. Right. These are flashes. Now, at times he struggled as a freshman, but I think he was being played a little bit of everywhere, and so I think sometimes he just, even though he was in the lineup most days, I just don't feel like he could get himself into a groove, And I think it's one of those things that it just, as a freshman, you're adjusting the college ball and I don't know, all of that stuff. But I think he's made some strides this fall, and I think he's somebody that could factor in this lineup somehow, some way. Tim Corbin loves him he just calls him an all-around baseball player. He loves his potential in the infield, but again, RJ Austin could make an impact in the outfield as well. So there's some spots up for grabs in the outfield. I think in the infield, honestly, I think there's some things out there. The lineup in the infield is fairly set for the most part. You're going to have, Diaz. You're going to have Davis Diaz at third, Jonathan Vastine at shortstop. Koziel's probably coming in as a freshman playing second base, so he'll compete probably there. Maldonado and Austin Fort battling out at first base. Then you have Holcomb that's going to come in as a freshman, and he's going to factor in somewhere, and he's going to be kind of like a utility guy as well. But RJ Austin right now, according to Baseball America, is projected to play in the outfield with Jacob Humphrey, a transfer from University of Massachusetts Lowell, and Troy Lenevy. These names, man, they kick my butt. All right, I'll get these names. All right, I have a hard time pronouncing names. Everyone knows that. So RJ Austin, man, it's important for somebody like that to be versatile. And in baseball, you don't get that a lot because you get a lot of specialization in baseball, which the true Swiss Army knife doesn't exist very much. And Vanderbilt has two of them. They have Braden Holcomb and they have RJ Austin. Now, RJ Austin, even though he'll probably major in the outfield, let's say you get a couple injuries. Let's say you have a midweek game against Furman and you want to rest some guys, right? I don't know if they actually play Furman, but let's say they have a midweek single game and you just need to rest a few guys, and you want to get Austin in at bat, or you want to see what he looks like at, let's say, first base. We just throw him in there and say, okay, here you go. Like, he's that versatile of a player, and that's what I like about him. And so he is he's going to add a lot to this lineup. He's going to add a lot of pop to this lineup, some steals. He just again, an all around good player. Defensively, I think he's a key contributor. I think he's somebody. I honestly think he's the favorite to play in center field, which is a very coveted position. He should be very excited about that. So another position I'm looking forward to is the closer position. And this one's going to be interesting. Okay. The closer role. It's going to come down to a bunch of different people. Okay. I think it's going to come down to, you're looking at Ethan McIlvain, Bryce Cunningham, and Sawyer Hawks. I think are guys that are honestly, I think are going to end up in the bullpen. And I think McIlvain, he's got to develop some other pitches, but I think he's somebody that can start out in the bullpen. Cunningham is somebody that could get some innings there as well. Projected weekend rotation, Grayson Carter, Carter Holton, and Devin Futrell are guys that they're going to factor in. Your key relievers, Ethan McIlvain, Bryce Cunningham, and Sawyer Hawks, the transfer from Air Force. But, it's going to be, Nick Maldonado, he's gone, so you got to replace him. That's going to be, you have Andrew Dukanich. He's the top player in the 2022 prep class. He's back and healthy, so he's got to factor in somewhere. Whether he's somebody that starts out as a weekday starter and kind of works himself into the rotation based on how the season plays out, because it's a long season. There's a lot of answers to be had here. Coastal Carolina transfer Levi Huseman. He's ready to step in as well. He had some good innings and some scrimmage work this past weekend. So there's a lot to be sorted out at the pitcher position, on the pitching staff. That's what you call them, the pitching staff. The bullpen's going to be kind of fun to kind of figure out. The battle for closer, it's going to be an interesting one coming in, and it's again, it may be something that you don't see a true closer, a true consistent closer through like the early non-conference slate. You'll see, you may see in like back-to-back series where they try 4 different closers and they try different combinations of bullpen guys, see who wants to be a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy, who's going to be your long relief, like who's going to be your spot starters that, like, let's say the unthinkable happens and Carter Holton just gets absolutely shelled and he only pitches 2/3 of an inning. Well, who's coming in? Is it Andrew Ginther? Is it Cunningham? Is it some of these guys that competed for starting roles but like end up being relievers, but not closers, but just kind of being middle relief guys and spot starters with injury, or long relief guys who end up getting starter type innings and pitch counts because the starter gets shelled or walks a whole bunch of people, because I've seen that happen in college baseball. There's a lot to be said about that. And to have the depth that Vanderbilt has on the pitching staff is incredible. And so it's a good problem to have to kind of figure out what to do with all these guys. And I think Vanderbilt will stand to benefit from that. So when we see you tomorrow, we're going to talk more about, how some of these portal guys and how some of these we're going to take a look at how some of these portal guys will factor in. We'll focus in on the wide receivers. So Dylan and Foungy, how they integrate into the existing wide receiver room, how the freshman receivers factor in. We'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at some of the other things as well around this football program. We'll talk a little basketball, and then also we'll continue on with some baseball stuff, and we'll kind of pick this team apart a little bit and just kind of tell you what positions will factor in how and how Vanderbilt can win the SEC and how they can repeat as SEC champions and now make that push back out of the regionals towards Omaha. But that's all in the future. That's all this week. But as for tonight, we're done, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And as always, anchor down. Goodbye.